In Hitler's childhood, his father beat his mother while under the influence of alcohol. Thus, the desire to free his mother from evil as a knightly hero grew in the young Adolf Hitler. Already in his early youth, Hitler took refuge in the romantic world of Germanic legends, in which good wins over evil. This mysticism of the polarity of good and evil reached its peak in Vienna with the study of the esoteric literature of the Indo-Aryan battles of the gods. In these ancient texts, and in the first lectures of the contemporary authors, the worldview of the young Hitler was even more split into good and evil. In Vienna Men's Hospice, and inspired by these texts in solitary moments, Hitler forged his worldview. This worldview can hardly be reconstructed, yet the world of the god humans from Atlantis and their fall through evil influenced him so much that he lived in his own fantasy world. When Hitler came across the books of Guido von List, and later of Lance von Liebenfels, the fire to free the world from all dark forces was unleashed.
So according to Lance von Liebenfels, originally there were people with blonde hair and blue eyes. They were godlike. They came from somewhere in the universe, and amongst them were the animal-like humans, particularly the so-called monkeys. According to Lance, the races commingled insofar as the blonde and blue-eyed women united with the animal-like human beings. This is how the mixed races appeared, and these were called the little monkeys or Chandlan. Indeed, this comes from the Indian tradition. These animal-like beings and so on, in the whole world history, threatened the culture which the blonde and blue-eyed people had created, and which they still create. So this conflict is the fight of the animal-like, the lower beings against the so-called noble, heroic people. This leads to the necessary destruction of the lower beings. This program of destruction is the ultimate goal. It is indeed a form of apocalypse, in which the lower beings will have to be cast out, and the blonde and blue-eyed beings will survive.
With Hitler's view to save the world from evil, the catastrophe was already preordained. In the text by Lance von Liebenfels, we can find the inspiration ground of all racist teachings of the time, and Hitler embraced literally all of these ideas. Thus Lance von Liebenfels spoke of a purebred race of Aryan people and the reviving of the noble qualities of the gods, and of the end solution of getting rid of the inferior races in order to establish again the god-human race, blonde and blue-eyed, as the superior race. But Hitler was not the only one to read the teachings of Lance von Liebenfels in his paper Ostara in Vienna. There were many different personalities from various organizations who later came together in order to pull on the same side and to establish the idea of the new superior race. Ludendorff and Dietrich Eckart already subscribed to this racial publication. Strengthened by his interpretation of esoteric material, perhaps already a member of the Templar Order, Hitler launched himself into the First World War. He may have already made contact with Ludendorff before the First World War as an equally esoteric-minded friend. His chance to convince all that he was the German savior who would lead the battle against all injustice on earth came a few days after the beginning of the First World War in Munich, where he spoke up after the liberation battle against the communists. For a long time, he kept secret his esoteric knowledge and his membership of one of these esoteric sects. It was only when he came to power that people started to think about the idea of a blue-eyed race superior to all other races. A new Atlantean god was to be bred again, who would embody the godly qualities and psychic abilities. And the animal human of the rest of the world was to serve the super race. Due to the esoteric studies, he lived in a very personal world of his own imagination, where he saw the normal human being as degenerate and the archetype of the Atlantean legends of the gods as the standard to be re-established.
We are quite sure that Adolf Hitler was an honorary member of this order. He knew Lanz von Liebenfels personally. That is what Lanz told me and two other friends. He said Hitler had visited him in 1909 and previously bought the Ostara, but a few magazines were missing, and Hitler had thus asked Lanz to give him the remaining issues. Lanz did so. He gave them to him. And this means that Hitler knew the complete Ostara. He probably also knew the book published by Lanz in, I think, 1905, with the title Theozoologie, or Of Sodom's Monkeys and the Dream of the Path of the Gods.
Encouraged by his occult knowledge, he decided to lead the world into the 1,000 Years Empire as a messiah and savior in a final victorious battle against evil. Through the influence of drugs, he became a medium and naturally saw himself as the carrier of the lost qualities. He took the idea of a 1,000 Years Empire from John's Revelation. However, Hitler was not alone in his dream of establishing a Germanic empire with re-emerging god-humans from Atlantis. The thule-society of the Germanic order and the Armenian order of the 19th century, which met in the Four Seasons Hotel in Munich, had the same dreams with one difference. They saw the Freemason lodges and the Illuminati as the supreme evil.
Not many people know that the thule-society was a cover organization of the Germanic order. This Germanic order was created around 1912, and the thule-society appeared later. Theodor Fritsch was the driving force behind the Germanic order, and he, of course, was the mastermind of German anti-Semitism. At the beginning of this century, he had already conceived that the Jews and the organization which represented the Jews, which embodied Jewish culture, namely Freemasonry, in his opinion had to be fought against, preferably by an organization of the same caliber, indeed with a secret lodge. That is why the many anti-Semitic associations of the time, as well as the readers of his magazine Hammer, became united in the Reichshammer Union in 1912. The Germanic Order was created as a secret sister organization. Their principles were identical to those of Freemasonry, but it fought against its opponent with Germanic ideas. Finally, a work of conspiratory nature emerged. The Germanic Order would only take on trustworthy people of Germanic nature. To that effect, very detailed prescriptions were applied in order to achieve the desired result. People had to be preferably blonde and blue-eyed. They had to have a secure income. They had to have status and, of course, have internalized the appropriate ideas. The Germanic Order did not develop very well in the First World War because many of its members were involved in the war and membership dwindled. The first disagreements occurred, and in 1916 the Germanic Order was split. One branch of the Germanic Order renamed itself and became the Germanic Order Pilgrim to the Holy Grail, out of which the thule-society emerged later. Rudolf von Sebottendorf contacted the Grand Master of the Order, Hermann Paul, and both decided that Sebottendorf would build up the Bavarian provincial branch of the Germanic Order.